This is Queued Up, where we amplify the voices of educators with the science, soul, and story shaping education. On Queued Up today, we have Dr. Frances Stetson, and she is an expert in inclusion and special education and has a wealth of knowledge that we can't wait to dive into. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I said you're an expert in inclusion. How'd that happen?
It started from the very beginning of my career, and I have always been very interested in least restrictive environment concept and inclusion. I began by teaching children who are blind.
Yes.
And I knew Braille like crazy. And it was certainly one of the challenges is to integrate those youngsters in with their typical peers so that they have a social life as well as an academic progress life. And so I followed that thread throughout my career, all the way to today.
So how did you become a visually impaired teacher?
Well, I read a book when I was about 12 years old called Follow My Leader. It was about a boy who had been adventitiously blinded, and I could not. So fast forward, I go to University of Texas. I'm a sophomore. I got a threatening letter. They said that we're going to send you home if you don't declare a major at some point. So I'm walking across campus, and there's this student union tree with a sign on it said, "Are you interested in?" And I can feel that same feeling right this minute. It listed the disability categories, which we try to stay away from these days. But I saw it said children with visual disabilities. I went, that's it. And so I marched across University of campus, walked into Dr. Natalie Barriga's office. I said, I'm here. I'm ready to teach blind children. She said, have you ever met a blind child? And I said, ooh.
Oh. So I will meet them when I'm teaching them.
Tomorrow, I'm going to the State School for the Blind, which is what they had in Austin. And it was just, I know I was meant to do this.
Oh, you literally saw a sign.
I did. I saw a sign.
I mean, it can't get more clear than that.
I'm telling you, it was that direct. And I have always been thrilled with my progress in terms of starting with children who are blind and partially sighted, and then moved into Texas Education Agency, where I got to look at and have something to do with administration of the program statewide. And so my career has been, I often say it's not mine. Somebody else gave me this career.
That's awesome. And you just followed the journey.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, with trust.
So how long did you teach?
I taught 6 years, and then I married it with going back for my master's, so another 2, and loved it. Loved the classroom. Loved it. But my path then, of course, took me I was accepted into a leadership program at the University of Texas, and had to have an internship. And so my internship was quite a step up. It was working with the Texas Education Agency as an intern, and I just loved it. And we created statewide services through our service center network for children with visual disabilities, and it just, all of these were very much like that sign on the tree.
Yeah,
every one of these steps, and it's been quite a journey, because when I began, and that would be as a teacher, in 1970, 69. My goodness. The whole concepts of special ed were so different, and the opportunities for children were so different. So as I look back, I'm very proud. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. And I don't mean me, I mean this country.
Yes.
It's been phenomenal.
And that's what we're trying to do is bring awareness to what has been accomplished, what's working, and focus in on that positive piece of things.
Exactly.
Sometimes we can get hooked on the problem instead of hooked on the solution. So,
and I think there's an advantage in being my age, is you can look back and see we've really come a long way.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So inclusion, I'm all about inclusion. I can't wait to help kids get the skills they need to be able to be participating more. Why did that become your focus and passion?
Well, it was, I don't think it ever left me. And then at the state level, and then went on to work at the federal level, that issue kept surfacing and surfacing, because inclusive education is as much about your mindset your expectations for children with disabilities, and your acceptance of them. And actually, we continue to run into roadblocks. Those are not my students; they're your students, or they're
Absolutely.
and we've run into that so often. And so, even now, as we work with state departments and school districts, the main thing from our firm is systems change. It's not just a little problem here and here. It's a very large systems change effort around attitude, around shared ownership for children, around how we view their skills and their gifts rather than focusing on the negative. So it's not something that can be fixed classroom by classroom. It's got to involve the leaders. It's got to be, and brave leaders.
Yeah.
This is not always a positive topic.
Yeah.
There are
You get resistance.
Yeah. A number of teachers and administrators feel that if these youngsters were with disabilities were served down the hall or maybe in another building, they feel that they would be served better, those children would be, and that it would be easier for them to serve the children that they serve. So there's a lot of adult issues that intersect with inclusion, but I will worry if I don't say this. The open-heartedness and the openness to inclusive education has grown tremendously in my career.
Yes.
Tremendously. And there's not any educator that doesn't know the word inclusive or inclusive practices. And we pretty much, all of us have a road to travel in building our capacity. But the heart is followed. It's kind of leading in many cases, which is a wonderful thing. That had to happen.
Yeah, in order needed
Yeah.
to. And we chatted a little bit yesterday, and I was telling you that, my brother didn't even get to attend school because of his disability, because it was before the law came into effect. And I'm excited about where we've moved to with inclusion, and I think we're on the right track in our school system. But then once they age out of our school system, inclusion, we still have a lot of work to do. But that's not even our topic today. But there's so much more.
But that's
we
the
could be
next
doing.
horizon.
But it
of
is.
this topic.
It is. And when you're talking about inclusion, and it's not just a quick fix, or what do you do to change that mindset and to change the way people view, let's make this happen?
Well, when I'm working at a district level or a state level, one of the first things is that we really don't put out a positive message. Would you have to do this, and if you don't do that, you get in trouble, and so on. And every school district should, in my opinion, have a very rich portion of their website that celebrates the successes of children with disabilities, because there have been some studies, and I believe them, that if they're provided the right services in the right fashion, over 90% of children with disabilities can learn to master on-grade level content. But it sure is going to have to change how we deliver those services.
Yes.
And how we focus it. It's really an instructional challenge. And so just think that. When stories then on a website are featuring individual students or classrooms and showing that those old expectations that had people saying, well, they need to go to another classroom down the hall, can be debunked.
Yes.
And then we can begin to appreciate what that does in the classroom. And inclusion brings tremendous benefits to a general ed classroom.
It does. And I saw that throughout my entire career, that the more we make kids, the stigma being removed, I guess is what I'm really trying to say, the more quality life they have, because they get to participate, they get to do those things. And I feel like we're moving in the right direction pretty strongly.
But a lot of these old belief systems are so grounded in things, as you're commenting about, that happened hundreds of years ago in terms of perception of disability,
Yes.
Perception of limitations. And so that's really one of the starting points, is working with a district. What does your website say about all the youngsters that you're serving and their successes? What do we celebrate when the schools that have met quality standards to be an inclusive school? I think the awareness issue has got to move from where it was 50 years ago to the poor little things.
Yes.
to the really accomplished, well-rounded, bright youngsters
Yes.
that happen to also have a disability.
I think that we've definitely seen a shift in, we when I was in college, we pushed really hard to do people first language, and I feel like we had that stigma where we identified the disability and then talked about the person, and I see a shift.
I do.
I see that shift, and I see that most educators embrace that this is a unique person who has some barriers that we need to overcome. Before we continue, this episode is sponsored by Q360 Workforce Solutions. If you're a leader listening, you already know the problem. Q360 helps districts get ahead of the staffing and support gaps. This isn't about looking good on paper, it's about keeping schools steady. All right, back to the conversation.
I'm really amazed at the founders of IDEA. The thought that they put into that, even not even knowing what it would honestly look like at the end, is actually phenomenal, because I always talk about there's one word that if we remember that one word and act that way, we're going to accomplish incredible things for children. And that one word is individualized. We keep trying to do it by label or by place.
Yes.
Oh, you're a child with a behavioral issue. You go to the behavior unit or what have you. The minute we stop thinking in groups of children with one by disability label and start saying, what does Johnny need? And what does Susie and Miguel and so on? Then that IEP becomes an actionable document that results in success. But if we just look at the label, we're going to give kids with that label almost entirely the same thing, and we're not really able to lead them to success. Just that one word, and just think how many times that word individualized.
Oh, and it's in there a lot.
Comes into Public Law 94-1,
Yes.
42 to begin, and now IDEA. They knew what they were talking about. Reaching the reality is just the hard part.
Yes. And we're making progress, but thinking about inclusion and where you would like to see it in the next 50 years, what would that look like?
Other than some very specialized needs, for example, a blind child needs to learn Braille or use text-to-speech or all the other technological advances, recognizing that there are some technical needs or training needs that individual children may need. I really believe that if I could imagine what it should be, the opposite of inclusion is exclusion. And that helps me frame what would I want to see.
Yes.
What would I want to see it in 50 years? What would I like to see tomorrow?
Yeah.
Is that we're still practically excluding children. And we're ready now. We know what instructionally works. We know how to staff it. We know how to build collaboration for general ed and special ed teachers to work together. We know all of the things that represent quality standards. And so in the next 50 years, the reality of no more exclusion.
Yes.
Because we're still doing that. So would be the full inclusion, acceptance. And it's just as a natural part of our society.
That is an interesting way to define that. And I've never looked at it that way. So I like that. It's easy to identify when somebody's excluded. You're like, oh, they didn't get to go to the field trip. Why didn't they get to go to the field trip? Or they didn't participate in that math lesson. Why did that happen?
Right. That's the major question.
Yeah.
And what do we need to do? The original legislation said that. What is it that is needed in order to look at the general ed classroom as your reference point? And what do we need to do there to make it possible for that child to be successful? Yeah. And there will be some students. I'm not a 100% or nothing. I think you stopped individualizing if you take that approach.
Yes.
But if I really look at that child, there may be, for a period of time, some skill development that is needed. We always need to think back, how do we make the general ed classroom and the neighborhood school the right reference point? And we can do it. We're smart. We know how to do that. And our family generally is very supportive of that most often. And so it's not where do we send him? what do we do within that general ed classroom that makes that a successful environment?
Yes. And we have to identify the supports they need to be successful and the plan to fade those supports.
Oh, love that point. Yes.
Because that's where I think we fail students is when we do that. And if you think about somebody who's got an injury and you give them crutches to help support them, if they never get off those crutches, their muscles are going to atrophy. And I see that with some of the supports we put in place. We don't have an exit strategy.
And we
on
think
the
my
support.
job is done.
Yes,
We
I got
identify
one on
that-
support. That child's perfect. We're good. No, they need it right now to learn, and we need to fade it.
I'll
How
tell
do
you
we fade
something
it?
kind of interesting. Texas is is my home state. It's always doing things that seem like the Texas way. But years ago, they did not adopt, which I was not happy at first, the phrase, the IEP, to individualized education program for the student. They said instead it's the Admission Review and Dismissal Committee, not an IEP committee. Does the same thing, but they use different acronyms. Well, I thought, why would we do that? And now I'm more in love with that concept because admission, then continuous review of what they're needing, how it's working out, and where they're succeeding. And then the D word, dismissal.
Yeah.
That every meeting should say what is required for this student in order to be dismissed from special ed.
Because that is the goal.
That is the goal.
Yeah.
And if we've given them accommodations and technology and training and have had the right staffing, that is a very valuable goal. And I've discovered in thinking about this that very few districts even keep data on dismissal of children from special ed.
Right.
And heck, do you know a better celebration to have than that one?
Exactly.
Dynamite
Yeah.
data.
Yeah.
We don't even collect it.
And we don't plan for it.
No.
So we don't collect the data and we don't plan.
So
So
expectations again.
yes. So I do think that we still have some growth opportunities within this and to look how far we've come.
Oh, yes.
You know, and it's been so fun this week to talk to all of the different people that have been in special education for so long. Because I know how it's changed from 1997 when I started to now. But to hear the stories and to see the growth and know there's good opportunity for more growth, that's exciting.
I shared with you in our first conversation that my first job with the Texas Education Agency was to drive around the state with a printout this thick of children who were excluded from school. And in those days, you could before 1942.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so I drove all over Texas, and that's saying a lot, and met with the superintendent and said, here's this youngster that are 2 or 3 or 10 or 12 that you have in your district that are not in school. What do we need to do to help you do that? And often they showed me the door very quickly because it was baffling. Nobody had the skills. I felt very disgruntled, of course, and dissatisfied. But on the other hand, they had not even thought about serving children that had more significant disabilities. And today, you don't turn a single child away from the door when they walk in it for services, not one. And we've learned an awful lot since then.
We have.
So it's 50 years of history, but that's a huge accomplishment. One of the contrasts is I've done some work in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan and Saudi Arabia and other countries, and to realize that they are just beginning to look at this concept, and they're in awe of what we have done here and how we do it naturally now, pretty naturally now, and it's seeing that lens for them is where we were 50 years ago.
Yes.
It's
And
incredible.
I love that you are sharing the knowledge because it doesn't matter where a child is from, where their beginning story is. What matters is they get educated. And I think that is marvelous that you are doing that.
I enjoy it very much.
You know, you said something yesterday. I went back to your story about when you had to go around and say, hey, how can we educate these kids? And then the public law went into effect. Yes. So then they sent you in to do what?
Well, that was so fun because I had been not very successful talking schools and accepting these children. So when 94-142 was passed, they said, Francis, where there are 20 regional service centers in Texas, you're going to travel to each one and hold a meeting for the superintendents and tell them, here's 94-142, and this means that, yes, you will accept these children. And those were incredible sessions. Jaws dropped.
Yeah.
People just looked like, are you kidding me? And then there was some pushback. But one of the things that has affected me throughout my career is just remembering those times.
Yeah.
And a great deal of respect for the superintendents and principals who've taken this on as a leadership role.
Yeah.
Tremendous respect. This is not easy work.
It is
And they're
not
doing
easy
it.
work.
And they're doing it. It's wonderful.
And how brave of you to walk through the same doors that said no thank you and say, hey,
Guess what?
kind of law thing came down. You're going to have to do it.
Yeah. People would joke with me sometimes when I drive up to the service center. They'd say, keep your car running in the parking lot.
You might need a fast getaway.
But it wasn't needed. It wasn't needed. But I thought when I knew you were going to do this interview, I thought of something fascinating. My title back then was the longest one I've ever had. Chief Consultant, Systems Development for, and we use this phrase, children with severe disabilities, or we didn't use person first language, severely disabled students. Do you know the only model that we had back then, the only, were state schools where they had been segregated. They'd families that had to finally send them to Austin, in the case of Texas, or the state schools, where they were residential. And I went, and then that was my next assignment, was to go and see how the youngsters were served. Of course, that's not the same thing served in a separate facility,
Right.
versus in a public school or in a community environment. So we've come so far
We've
because
come so
that
far.
was where we went to say, well, what do you do?
Yeah. So thinking about how far we've come, if you could go back in time to your beginning of your career, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, I think I'd say stay the course. Change doesn't happen overnight. And what we did purposefully. We've done slowly, slower than I'd like. But this will happen. And I keep bringing that word exclusion. Who would want that for a child?
Right.
So how do we make inclusion work? And it's actually, sometimes I have to say, often it's an adult issue. It's not a child issue. It's an adult issue. So we get to get past those.
I think I'm going to forever look at it as exclusion, because you do get pushback when you talk about inclusion. Well, that's going to be, but most of our educators would never be okay with exclusion. So if we hit it from that direction, I think we can move some mountains. Well, you guys have already moved mountains. I have, this whole week has been such an honor to me to hear the knowledge and the wisdom from people who pioneered the field. I mean, that's the only way we can look at it, is you were there at the beginning, knocking on the door, trying to get somebody to listen, and then coming back in and go, guess what? Congress listened. And now you have to listen.
Yep.
So,
Fun times.
Yes. And just so much that we can still learn. And I'm grateful that you are still in it and pushing your knowledge and doing all of those things. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was incredible, and I feel enriched by our conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Queued Up. Follow and subscribe to stay queued up for what's next.